Thank you for joining us on behalf of the Bryant Alumni Association to our Summer Welcome podcast series. The purpose of this podcast is to welcome the class of 2020 to our alumni family and give them the best tips and tricks for living and working in various cities across the country. My name is Kathleen Brown, and I will be your moderator for this session. Today, we're going to cover a few cities in Mountain Central states. I would like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today for this Summer Welcome series. We know the experiences of our alumni that are here are valuable to share with the Bryant community. Every opportunity for alumni to exchange ideas strengthens and expands our Bryant network. Today, we are joined by Alex Sweetser, class of 2011 from Denver, Shruti Kansara, class of 2018 from Chicago, Emily Socha, class of 2016, joins us from Minneapolis, and Hillary Cartwright, class of 2011 from St. Louis. Thank you all. During this session, I will be asking our panelists a series of questions, and hopefully those will provide some insight as to how they got to where they are today after graduating from Bryant. They'll also share with us some tips about working and living in Denver, St. Louis, Chicago, and Minneapolis. This time, I'd like to invite our alumni visitors tonight to introduce themselves. So if you could, please tell us your name, your class year, where you currently reside, and where you're originally from, and what your current professional role is. And if you can, also a short congratulatory message to the class of 2020. And with that, could I ask Shruti to kick us off? Shruti from Chicago?
Sure, happy to do so. So, hi everybody, congratulations to the class of 2020 on graduating at such a tumultuous time. Well wishes to you as you all navigate what's going on over the next few months. My name is Shruti Kansara. I am class of 2018 graduate. I currently live in Chicago, Illinois, but I'm originally from a town in India called Navsari. I have been living in Chicago for the last 2 years, working as a consultant at Slalom.
And so Emily, can we go to you?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Socha. Congratulations to the class of 2020. If you can make it through this, you can make it through anything. So stay positive and congratulations on a well-deserved 4 years. I'm excited for you and all that is to come next. I am originally from Southington, Connecticut. I graduated Bryant in 2016. I currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I am currently a senior buyer for our maintenance, repair, and operating supplies for our North America plants at General Mills.
Thank you, Emily. And Alex, if you could share a little bit about what brought you to Denver?
Absolutely. Hey everyone, Alex Sweetser here. First, want to congratulate all of you. One of the biggest things that I've learned in my career thus far is adaptability. And I can't think of a bigger thing to be adaptive towards than graduating in this current climate. So if you can get through this, I have no doubts that you'll be able to accelerate in your own careers. I am a class of 2011. I studied finance and politics at Bryant. Currently reside in Denver. I'm from Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire and spent about 8 years in Boston at the beginning of my career. Right now, I manage our West Coast customer business for a tech company called Datadog.
Excellent, thank you. And Hillary from St. Louis.
Hi, everyone. Congrats to the class of 2020. I can't imagine graduating at this time, but you did it. And I hope that you'll all get to go back to campus soon and walk through the archway. I know how important that is to wrap up the experience. So I'm Hillary Cartwright. I am originally from Seekonk, Massachusetts, not too far from Bryant, but I now live in St. Louis, Missouri. I am a senior production manager for 160/90, which is an event experiential marketing company.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so if we can let's start with Emily this time, and we'll start with our first question. So what is a little bit about your path, your story? What did you do after graduation?
Yeah. After I graduated from Bryant, I moved right out to Minneapolis. I knew when I was looking for full-time careers after graduation that I wanted to move away from the East Coast. I didn't have anywhere specific set in mind, but I knew I wanted something different. And I think a lot of the times when you think of major cities, being in New England, you think Boston, DC, New York, or even you go automatically all the way to the West Coast, San Francisco, etc. And when I found out all the great companies that are headquartered in Minneapolis, it just seemed like a great hub to try and move to that city and be a part of. I also wanted to work for a company that was more consumer facing. So by getting an opportunity to work for General Mills, it was a really easy decision to just say, I want something new. Moving to the Midwest and working for a CPG really checked all those boxes. And so since then, I've lived here for about 4.5 years now, and have loved every minute of being in the cities.
Excellent, thank you. And so do you feel like you see yourself staying in this particular area and making this your home?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of folks say Minneapolis is one of the hardest cities to get people to move to, but also one of the hardest to get them to move from.
Right.
And I found that very true and very interesting. When I moved out here, I had figured I work for an international company, I'll move around, we have plants across North America, we have global locations, sign me up for 2 years and then ship me somewhere else. Here I am 4.5 years later, living downtown in a condo with a dog, and don't see any foreseeable future of me leaving. When I also talk with other Bryant alumni in the Minneapolis area, we have a small but strong group here that we get together, when we're able, and a lot of folks have a similar experience. So they've either came out here and now are here, 20 plus years later, and have just had such a positive experience that I've had. Another great thing to add about Minneapolis, which you don't really realize, I think, until you're living here full time, is that the city itself has all the aspects of a major city. So you have the restaurants, you have sports teams, you have a great downtown life. However, you don't have all of the traffic, all of the high costs, and a lot of things that come, some more negative things that come with big cities too. And so I think that it's such a great way to have everything that a big city has, but more easily accessible and at your fingertips. So that's really something that I enjoy.
I also heard it's one of the most bike-centric cities, like really cycling forward.
Correct. You'd think that even with really tough winters, which I don't want to just breeze by, you definitely make up for it in all the summer months. And so everyone is super active. There's bike paths, trails, parks, anywhere you name it. People are outside when they can be. And I'd even say there's a resiliency to the community that even in the winter, you just prepare for it. So like my friends and I, for instance, it's going to be negative, 10 one day, but that doesn't stop you from doing what you said you were going to do. It just might change the amount of layers you put on. And I think that type of resiliency really just helps, you stay positive through what feels like a long winter, but there's always something to do and going on because the community at that point has just already planned for it.
Well said. Thank you. Alex, you must have some similar kind of experiences in Denver to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Denver has been an incredible city. I think the winters get this perception on the outside that Denver is super cold and snowy, but Denver is actually very acclimate and it averages 305 days of sunshine. So in January, it might snow a foot and the next day it'll be 70 and all the snow will melt by noon, right? But as soon as you get kind of outside the Denver belt into the mountains is, where you get those really traditional Colorado winters and snowy winters. I was up in Breckenridge in February for President's Day weekend and it snowed 5 feet in 3 days. So trying to ski that, growing up on East Coast, snowboarding through, groomed ice to trying to ski through 5 feet of powder has definitely been a little bit of a shock for me. But even the summertime here with everything that's going on with COVID, right? It's such an outdoor space, an outdoor state that you can just go outside and go on a hike. You can go find a little lake somewhere and take the dog on a paddle board. or, you know, go golfing, or, you know, do any one of these outdoor activities that you love to do, and you're not really confined to the downtown area. So, you know, I love the city. I love being here. I moved to Denver for a job opportunity. So a little bit about my career thus far. Kathleen, I think, as you know, is anything other than a straight line, and that I had graduated and had some, you know, personal things that I had to work through. So I didn't immediately go into the career fields. As such, had to move back with my family in New Hampshire. So getting back after taking, you know, a year and a half off after graduation, trying to get a career, it was very difficult because you had to explain why you took that time off. You have that gap in your resume. So I actually ended up taking a job that didn't align with my degree in finance and politics, just to get back to Massachusetts. And that was door-to-door marketing, which was gruesome and grueling and a great experience. It's something that I would never do again, but it's something that I wouldn't take back because of what I'd learned through it. And doing that for a couple of years, I learned a lot about myself, a lot about sales, a lot about communication, psychology of sales. And I had come to this point of, do I continue on in sales or do I continue on in finance with what my degree is? So I became a recruiter for financial services at Robert Half. And great organization, you know, they do really great work globally. It just wasn't for me. So I had actually left 5 months after that role with no job prospects. I just couldn't do the job anymore. And a friend of mine reached out and offered me a tech sales job. So kind of start entry level. At that point, I didn't know whether or not I wanted to continue on in sales, but I felt that I needed to give it another shot just because the sales exposure I had wasn't really what you think of when you think of, you know, people in traditional tech sales roles or CPG sales roles, things like that. So I started at a tech company, started from the bottom, worked my way up, moved over to Datadog after 3 years as a customer success rep. I was sent out to Ireland to help onboard our Dublin team. So some great international experience there. And then I was promoted to manage a Boston team. So I grew a team from scratch in Boston. They became very successful. So I was at this position of, do I go to Singapore and Australia to manage our APAC region, or do I go to Denver to manage our West Coast Americas region? And I think the decision was very obvious for me. Growing up on a lake and the outdoors and the White Mountains, I was like, oh, Denver, 100%. So I threw everything into storage, lived with a friend for 2 months before I even got the job rec approved. And then once it was approved, I just hit the open road, drove out to Denver, stopped along the way, and have been managing, it's hired 6 new people out here, been managing them. So we're just growing the region, and it's been an absolute wild ride. And I have no idea what the future holds, but, you know, I said it before, adaptability, being comfortable, being uncomfortable is where you get the biggest growth opportunity. So just going with the flow, going with the whim, just going for it and figuring it out as you go, I think has helped me accelerate my own professional career.
Excellent, excellent. Great experience to share. That Z line or whatever the wavering line is, not the straight arrow, is such an important story to tell to so many current students and new grads, because often folks have their eye on one bullet, one prize, and life just doesn't always let you stay on that straight line. So thank you for sharing that. And so a little teaser. So we're going to hear from Shruti and Hillary about their cities and what brought them there and their experiences. And then after that, we'll circle back and start talking about a little more like the wining and dining and entertainment aspect of the cities they live in. And I'm going to come back to Alex to kick us off with that, because he is such a foodie. And so I can't wait to hear about his Denver take on that experience. But let's stay on the thread about the cities you're in and how your career path took you there and what it's like to work. So Shruti, in Chicago, same kind of weather elements to deal with as you make your way there?
Yes, very much so. But to Emily's point from earlier, everyone knows it's coming. Once you move here, you know what to expect, and you know that you have to prepare accordingly. And after that, it just becomes part of the day-to-day. But really, the 3 or 4 months of summer that you get here in Chicago make up for all of the hard winter that you deal with. And that's why people stay here year after year.
What was your introduction to the city? What brought you out there?
So my introduction to the city was a little bit earlier than just moving here for work. So when my family moved to the States, we originally moved to the suburbs of Illinois, and we were living about 45 minutes outside Chicago, and we moved around quite a bit within the state and in some other Midwestern towns in general. But Chicago was, to me, what I think a lot of people who grew up on the East Coast perceive Boston and New York to be, that kind of ideal city that you think about moving to when you're older, and it's always got this draw for you. And so even though I wasn't really from Chicago, I always identified when I was in other parts of the country by telling people that I was from Chicago. So when I was graduating, I knew that I was interested in potentially coming back here and maybe trying out living in the city on my own. I had done an internship in Chicago between my junior and senior year, and that was my first time trying to actually live in the city and see what that was like, which is very different from being in the suburbs outside the city. And then I had also applied to jobs in all different areas. So I wasn't very location driven. I applied to 56 different jobs. And so we're in all different states. Some were international. I was an international business major, so I wasn't really tied down to anything. But it worked out that I had applied for this company, Slalom, that I hadn't really heard much about. And there was a Bryant alum who was in the Slalom Boston office who I reached out to, and we connected a little bit over LinkedIn. And we got on the call, and he was kind enough to send over my information to the representatives for the talent acquisition team in Chicago and really helped me kind of get my foot in the door there. So after that, the process happened really quickly. That was in the first semester of my senior year, and I came out to Chicago during winter break to do my official in-person interviews. And I remember getting off the plane and thinking, why in the world do I want to move here? It is like negative 30 degrees with the wind chill. This is insane. And I'm glad that I went through with it and moved here, because the last 2 years have been really great.
Good. Hillary, can we hear from you?
Sure. So unlike some of the other cities, it's actually the summers in St. Louis that I think are more brutal. It is unbelievably humid. My hair is always sticking straight out. Hard to go outside in the summer. The winters are not so bad, but it's the hot weather that gets me. So, but other than that, St. Louis has been great. It was never, ever a place I expected to live until I lived there. Kind of my story is, when I was at Bryant, I was really involved in the student programming board on campus. So I was planning a lot of events. And with that, we had gone to a conference in Hartford, Connecticut. When I was at that conference, I had done quite a bit of networking and was able to get a job right out of school in Boston, where I was commuting from Providence to Boston every day. I don't recommend that either. And I was working for an entertainment agency. So I was booking entertainment at colleges. Bryant was one of them. So whenever you see like comedians or musicians or magicians, the big spring weekend concerts, I was planning those for different colleges all over the country. So it was like my dream job right out of college, but it was kind of a sales job and 100% commission. So it was tough, but I got to travel a lot and basically kind of started the whole division of this company from scratch. So that was really exciting. It was a really good experience. And while I was doing all this traveling, I met a man who lived in St. Louis and had his own startup company. And so we did long distance for a little while, but then his startup had to stay in St. Louis due to funding reasons. So I thought, why not? I might as well just move there. And I was able to keep my job. They let me work remotely and set up a little office in St. Louis out of my home. So I did that for about 8 or 9 months. And then I realized I had no friends in St. Louis. I hadn't met anyone because I worked from home all the time. So I decided to look for jobs in the area, and I was so fortunate enough again to get a dream job for me at a marketing agency called Momentum Worldwide, where it was more of a typical agency job, but I was able to plan marketing events. So working with big name clients and planning events for them all over the country. So through that job, I now came into my current role, and I've been to 4 Super Bowls. I've been to probably 100 different cities across the country. I've been to all kinds of events I never thought I would go to, like the Indy 500, the Tribeca Film Festival, Kingsford barbecue competition. So it's been really exciting. Definitely not what I expected at all. But now I've been in St. Louis for 7 years, which is crazy. I thought it would be 1 or 2, and it's still going well. So I think I'll stay for a little while longer. We'll see how it goes. But it's a good place to live when you travel a lot like I do, except for the past 5 months or so. But usually I'm on a plane at least every week. So it's nice to live in the middle of the country where you can fly just about anywhere in 2 or 3 hours. Those flights from LA to Boston were rough, and you don't have that when you live in the middle. So that's good.
Excellent. All right, so yeah, so if we can circle back to hearing a little bit more about the dining and recreation and other entertainment aspects of the cities you live in. And Alex, we'll start with you.
Sure. So Denver has been absolutely incredible. I was able to explore a lot pre-COVID. I moved out here in November of 2019. So I got to spend some time up in the mountain areas of, these small little mountain towns, very quaint, quintessential towns. And everyone here is just super friendly. I remember when I first moved out, I started to go around the different restaurants. But my background actually, while throughout high school and college, I worked as a sous chef. So very familiar with food. I have a food Instagram called Cooking with Sweets. We're actually producing a side project, passion project for me as a cookbook. So we're incorporating my business. And, we have people from Ireland contributing and, all around the world. So it's actually going to be a really great project, I think. So when I first moved out here, I really wanted to explore the culture and the food and what makes Denver unique, and look at the history of the city and where people had migrated to, right, from not only the gold rush, but from Mexican Americans coming up and migrating from south up into Colorado. So there's a very big Mexican cuisine in Colorado, and it's incredible food. And then the people are just amazing. I found this brewery, and they actually brew beer with wine together. So there's this brewery down the street, and they brew wine and beer together. So they don't mix it after it's brewed. They actually brew the barley with the grapes. So they create this unique fusion. And then the entire food menu is based off the fusion of the grape varietal or the barley and the hop varietal. So you see all of these different types of restaurants, and people take chances out here when it comes to culinary and it comes to cocktails and wines and beers. There's so many breweries. You can bring your puppy out to the brewery, and there's just so many dogs playing around, so many parks. People are always having picnics in the park. We're going to do a potluck on the beach this Sunday with a bunch of former colleagues I used to work with who've migrated out here. And even with COVID, of course, I was a homebody for about 2.5, 3 months, just cooking for myself and not really having much human interaction. But as soon as everything started opening up, more patios, they shut down streets here, and it's just all tables, like cars can't even go through. So it's very, very vibrant city. There's a lot to do. I'm just waiting for the entertainment to open back up so I can go to Red Rocks, which is one of the reasons why I moved out here. So yeah, if anybody comes out here, there's plenty of things to do outdoors. There's plenty of breweries to visit. There's plenty of restaurants. And really just sightseeing around the city is beautiful.
Excellent. Emily, would you like to share a little bit about the entertainment dining experience?
Yeah, I think the two things that stick out to me about the Minneapolis kind of recreation and fun is the sports, and then I'd call it cabin life. So it's one, Minneapolis has 6 major sports teams, or 6 professional sports teams. So we have Major League Baseball, the NFL, men's basketball, women's basketball, a hockey team, and a soccer team. And so by having all 6 professional sports teams in the city, all within a 20 to 30 minute, driving radius of one another, just creates a environment of camaraderie around sports. So if you like sports, or you like the, getting together and eating food and having a couple drinks that goes to a sports a lot of the times, it's definitely a great city to do that. I don't want to say the sports or teams are any good. Being from New England, I can't say that for what's out here, but I can say it's still fun to watch and join in with all the people that, are diehard Vikings fans and other fans who've grown up here their entire life. The other part about the entertainment would be that sticks out, right, as I said, cabin life. So what I mean by that is a lot of us in New England, as we would talk to maybe going to the Cape for the weekend or going to your beach house, a lot of folks in Minnesota have cabins. And so it's very common for, especially in the summer months, to, people are at their cabin every Friday through Sunday. And if you can either have a cabin or have a friend who has one, you've definitely got weekend plans for a solid, 3 to 4 months. Anything from just hanging out with, friends and family, to getting out on the water, bringing all your dogs with you. That's probably some of the good memories that, a lot of folks out here have. And I think Minnesota, they say the land of 10,000 lakes. So there's always lakes up far north where if you want a little bit more remoteness, you can definitely get there and do a lot of hiking up the North Shore. Or you can have, lakes within a 5-minute walk from anywhere you're living, probably in a suburb or right downtown. I think a lot of people who tend to go up north, we call it like the North Shore. And so that's really anywhere from 2 hours north of the Twin Cities. So that's Minneapolis and St. Paul together. You can drive up to a Duluth. I'd compare Duluth to like maybe a Newport, but like the Midwest version of Newport.
Okay.
I don't really know a better explanation, but for anyone listening, it's more of what you'd think like of a Midwest cabin-y version or lakeside version of Newport, where there's a lot of small shops and restaurants and activities going on, festivals. There's a marathon there every summer. And so it's a really fun town that kind of starts off the drive from the bottom of Lake Superior all the way up to the Canadian border would be. And so it's really fun to get to do a ton of hikes up your drive up the North Shore and really explore a lot of that area, all within probably, an 8-hour drive. You can really see a lot of beautiful scenery up there.
Very cool. I want to visit. Hillary, tell us a little bit about your world in St. Louis.
Sure. So my favorite thing about St. Louis are how many free activities there were. You definitely get spoiled here because things that you expect to be free everywhere are not anywhere else besides St. Louis. So we have like the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. They do free tours and free beer every time you go, which is great. There is the St. Louis Zoo, which I would argue is definitely top 2 zoos in the country, and I've been to a lot of zoos. It's totally free. Art museum is free. There's constantly like free concerts and activities to go to. You pretty much don't have to pay for any activity you do in St. Louis. It's really great. So that's the biggest thing. Second favorite thing is the barbecue. Growing up in New England, I knew nothing about barbecue food. I don't even know if I ever ate barbecue before I moved here, but the barbecue is incredible. even if you're a vegetarian, they do like barbecue portobello mushrooms, which are amazing, just as good as a brisket or a pulled pork. So definitely recommend that. The food in general is great, but the barbecue, I think, is unlike anywhere else in the country. So those are my two biggest things. And then sports. I know Minneapolis has like a lot of sports, but we do have the current Stanley Cup champions, which is really exciting for St. Louis. I'm a Bruins fan, so the Stanley Cup was like a dream Stanley Cup for me with my home team and then my current St. Louis adopted team going against each other. And I'm also a skating coach. I coach ice skating. So it's really brought so much excitement around hockey and skating, and everyone wants to learn, everyone wants to do it. So it's a really exciting time to be in St. Louis for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you. Shruti, tell us a little bit about wining and dining and entertainment in the Chicago area.
Sure. First off, I'm really excited to visit Minneapolis, Louis sometime. But one of the things that I really love about Chicago is that the city has something for everyone. So there are 77 distinct neighborhoods within the city, as well as the surrounding suburbs. And every neighborhood is so different from the ones around it. And so this is a city of eating and drinking and doing things indoors in the winter and doing things outdoors in the summer. And no matter what you're interested in, you'll find something to do. So we have, the Lakefront Trail is a really big summertime attraction. So because we share so much of our boundaries with Lake Michigan, we have a beautiful public trail that is great for biking, running, taking walks, doing picnics, anything like that. That's usually where you'll see most Chicagoans spending their summers. Even now, they had closed off the lake a little bit when COVID was really taking off, but a great way to do something and get out of the house and be outdoors and properly socially distance yourself. And so it's been a really great thing to have during this time of staying home and staying indoors. But the food and drink culture here is also something that I really love. So one of the great things about the fact that we have so many different neighborhoods is that many of these neighborhoods are representing different ethnicities and groups. And so we have, Little Italy, but we also have a huge Polish culture here. So you have a lot of restaurants where you can go get really delicious pierogies and all this other great Polish food. We have also Pilsen and some other towns that are, or some other neighborhoods that are, more kind of Mexican population. And then we also have a Little India, which is really exciting. So north of the city, we have Devon, which is a place where there are tons and tons of Indian restaurants and things like that. So there's no shortage of good food here. There's no shortage of, variety in food, which is always exciting. There are very few restaurants that I've gone to multiple times unless there's some place that I really liked, because there's always something new to try and some place new to check out. So that's been really wonderful. And then entertainment-wise, Chicago is the city of comedy, right? So if you're familiar with the Second City or some of these venues where we have so many famous comedians that have really gotten their starts here, there are tons and tons of theaters throughout the city. So one of my favorite shows is at a theater called the IO Theater, Improv Olympics. And if you look them up, if you're ever interested, they have tons of really famous alumni. I believe Tina Fey and some other SNL folks also trained at the IO Theater. And my favorite show there is an improvised Shakespeare show. So you get to hear a 2-act play that is completely made up in the style of Shakespeare. Really, really fun time, and lots of different things like that are always happening. So when you are walking around on a Friday night and you're near a theater, you'll probably see a line out the door because that's where a lot of people, not just tourists, but locals tend to go as well. And then the one last thing that I'll mention, because I know I have said a lot, is the museums here are really great as well. So I live right near a part of the city called Museum Campus. And so it's right across from Soldier Field where the Bears play. We're pretty close as well to where the Blackhawks play, which is really exciting. And we also have, I believe it's 3 major museums in this area. So we have the Art Institute of Chicago, which is one of the best art museums in the world. I believe they have one of the if not the largest collection of Impressionist art outside the Louvre. We also have the Adler Planetarium here, which is really exciting, and then the Field Museum, which is a natural history museum. So no matter what you're interested in, you're going to find something in the city that will satisfy that interest.
And what about the jazz?
So much jazz, yes, music. See, I'm not a very musically inclined person, so I'll defer people to Google for that one.
Got it. All right, so we'll let Shruti off the hook to talk about the music scene in Chicago, and we'll move on. And so for all of you to think about, how did you meet people as you came to these new cities? So, Shruti, while Chicago was new, Illinois was not. So you had some benefit of a little familiarity. For Emily and Alex, Hillary, I think Hillary and Alex, you had the opportunity to transition with your existing company to these new cities, and that gave you some network. Although for Hillary, working from home, you had to then branch out, and you told us how you made new friends. You got a new job. So maybe some universal themes, advice for anyone starting their careers in new cities. What would you tell them? And then maybe if you have something specific to share about your city, then by all means share that as well. So Emily, you want to give us a start?
Yeah. So when I moved to Minneapolis, right, I was 21, young, wanted to do fun things. And I found out that Bumble is not only a dating app, but you can also make friends on it. So funny enough, I downloaded the Bumble app. On Friday nights, instead of looking for guys on Bumble, I was looking for girlfriends to hang out with because I wanted to go and sit and get a fancy cocktail, or I wanted to go and get my nails done, and I had no one to go with. So I thought it would be really fun to see if I'm, a young girl sitting at home and just moved to a new city and I have nothing to do. There's got to be other, young girls in the same position that wanted a new friend. And so one of the best friends that I made out here, I actually met through Bumble BFF, and we now are friends 4.5 years later. It's definitely that like awkward first date type feel where you're just randomly meeting someone and wondering if you're going to click. But I think similar to any type of dating relationship, when you're looking for friends, you're looking for people that like to do the same things, have the same values as you. And it was really fun to just meet a ton of people, get to try new spots that I had on my list of things I wanted to go see. But, so it was a very easy way of, hey, I want to go here. You want to go with me? And it kind of creates this fun environment to meet someone new and get to check out and check off something off your I just moved here list. And so that had been kind of one of the ways that I met some of my best friends, and I'm still best friends with them today.
I love that. Thank you so much. And that's so much more compelling in this current climate too, with so many young people maybe heading to cities and they can't even necessarily go out and bump into people to meet them. They're going to have to make these more concerted efforts to make these connections. So that's a fantastic story and great advice. So I really appreciate that perspective.
One thing to add to, and I'm not sure about other cities, but in Minnesota particularly, like I said, it's hard to get people to move away from. So what a lot of things you'll notice in Minnesota is a lot of people who went to high school here, went to college here, have all their best friends here. Mm-hmm. And so while that's really great for those groups of people that have, their best buddies that they've known since childhood and grew up down the street, it obviously makes it really hard to try and infiltrate those groups and be one of those friends, those lifelong friends, when you just kind of moved there. So I think it's important that if you find you're in a city where that tends to be the case, just know that you're not the only one who moved there. I think it took me to just get out of my head and make sure that, yeah, you can make those good friends and you will find your way into the group just as I have. But there's also other people who aren't part of a group that are looking for one. And so as long as you just try and find who your people are, even if they came from everywhere else, that's so exciting, in order to kind of create your own group with new people.
Nice. Hillary, if I could move to you, you changed jobs for an opportunity to connect with more people in your community. Is that your singular strategy, or are there other things you did that you want to share?
Well, it helped get things started for sure. So I started that job, and then we hired some more people after, and they're still my best friends. We're a very, very tight group of people, even though, well, since COVID now, none of us work together anymore. But we all meet up like at least once a week, and we have group texts. But that was the first way to meet friends. And then that job that I had, if you want to go to school again, they pay for it for you. So I was able to go back to school and get my MBA at Washington University in St. Louis. So that's kind of where I met my second group of best friends, who I'm also very, very close with. And it was a good way to get to know people outside of my little bubble of the industry I work in, because it's a little bit of a weird bubble. So it was nice to meet people doing all kinds of different things. Like my very best friend from the program, she just launched a new like handbag company. She's incredible, and she's from Peru, and she makes these leather handbags, and she started it when we were in school together, and now it's like taking off. It's so cool. So that was definitely my biggest way to make friends, was to go back to school. That is an expensive way to make friends, so I don't always recommend it, but that was good. And then I also did some volunteer work too, that you was able to meet some friends that way. It's nice to meet people sometimes when you're doing something else. It's, you know, casual, and you're both there for the same reasons. You want to help this organization. So those three things are probably the best ways I've met people in St. Louis.
Excellent. All great strategies for everyone to try. Shruti, what do you think about Chicago?
So I was very lucky, moving from Rhode Island to here. I had two things that worked in my favor, and it was really difficult to leave so many of my friends who stayed in New England, but I was lucky that there were a couple folks that I had been connected with from high school that were still in the area and had moved to Chicago as their main source. There was also another Bryant alum that moved to Chicago with me, which was really exciting because he'd never been here before, and we were able to, stay connected and really support each other through the transition. But the other great thing that worked for me was that I was part of an early career program at my company. And so I started with 29 other people who were in that 0 to 3 years of experience range, and many of them had come from different places as well to Chicago for their job. And so having that cohort, to start with was really impactful, because it was, like-minded people experiencing similar things, just getting a start in their career, trying to get coaching and advice from each other when possible, and really having that camaraderie was really great. And so work helped me find people in that way. For me, I've also tend to be involved in things outside of where I'm working. And so, as Hillary mentioned, volunteering and doing events like that is a really great way to meet some people as well. So I signed up for a nonprofit here where I was volunteering with some high school students. And so I got to make some great friends with some of the other mentors that were serving in the program. And then sometimes it's really just meeting random people in random situations and finding that you have something in common, and not being afraid to take that first step and start a conversation, even though it may seem a little awkward at first. I think Emily made a great point about that as well, and kind of knowing that you're not the only person that is going through that experience of trying to make friends, because it really does get a lot more difficult when you're not in school and when you're not in that environment where everyone is constantly trying to meet each other. Just acknowledging that, it's going to be more challenging, but that there's something that you can do to take that first step and hopefully get some really great lifelong friends out of it.
Excellent. And Alex, did you know many people before you headed out to Denver, or did you starting from scratch?
It's definitely a mix of both. So, I moved out here as a 32-year-old, so I had an established network professionally as well as socially. So coming out here, I had a few colleagues that I had worked with at previous companies that were now out here. I had a colleague that I worked together in a restaurant in New Hampshire. She had moved out here. I had a friend that winters in Breckenridge, so I could always stay at his house and go skiing, hang out with him. So moving out here, I already had some people that I had familiar relationships with. But meeting new people, I'd say the number one thing you can probably do to meet new people is get a cute puppy. Because everyone stops and wants to meet puppy. What I did realize is everyone in my building knows my puppy's name, but they don't know my name. So no, you gotta be open. And one of the best things that I've learned is to just really be in the moment, right? Because my aspirations professionally include a potential political career, after tech and maybe running for a Congress or Senate seat. And what I try to do is really be in the moment and interact with that individual that I'm speaking with and really learn about them, be genuinely curious, really try and see the world from their perspective and really understand what it is that they're passionate about or what makes them happy. And in doing that, you actually are able to establish some really great relationships with some people that you normally wouldn't, bump into outside of your normal, socioeconomic circles, right? If you're living in an apartment building that's very affluent, right? How do you get back into the community? So just being in the moment, I think, has really helped me. I think finding a community in church as well, kind of exploring those avenues and volunteering. I've been hearing from everyone, volunteer work is a really great opportunity to meet other like-minded, genuine people that really care about giving back to the community as well. And a few other avenues I would say would definitely be, the work network, the people that you're in the office with day to day, going out and grabbing a drink, meeting their significant others, meeting their friends. But the biggest thing that I've also found is just, reaching out, right? If you meet somebody, reach out, make plans, go outdoors, go to a brewery, and you start to develop all of these different friend groups. So I have a group of friends in the building here that we hang out in the common areas or out at the pool. I'm part of a Facebook group called Denver Events. There's like 600 people in there. So every single weekend, people are posting, hey, event here on this trail, event here at this beach. We're going paddleboarding here, or we're going, wake surfing. So you can kind of just pop into one of those groups at any point of time and just meet, 20 new people in one day. And, maybe you don't click with anybody, but maybe you do, and that can develop into relationships. So, a lot of different avenues. I'd say just get out there, be comfortable being uncomfortable, and try to live in the moment as much as you can.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, all of you. We are kind of nearing the end of our end of the time here, but I want to cover also a little bit about your Bryant experience. And are there any folks, whether it was a coach, a staff member, a professor, someone in our, the administration that, either just inspired you or helped you build your network and you've stayed connected to? Like, what's your Bryant connection? Let's go with Shruti on this one. Shruti, why don't you give us a start on that?
Sure. So I've been very connected with Bryant since graduating. I think there are many, many people who have been extremely influential in just giving me some information and helping me get to where I wanted to go. And so the International Business Program comes to mind immediately. The professors, the directors are all people who from day one want to see you succeed and will do whatever it takes to help you get there. And that continues even after you walk under the archway and are off campus. And so, professors like Ramirez and some other folks, Professor Das, or even Madad has always been, very engaged. And it's not the most frequent contact, but it's knowing that they're in your corner when you meet them. And so Professor Jank, for example, one of the management professors, comes to mind as well, because when I'm trying to figure something out or I have a question about something, I know that I can reach out to these folks and they'll help me figure out what it is that I need to do next. Same with some of the information systems and analytics professors as well. Professor Souza, for example, cares so much about what's going on with the students. And I was just talking with Professor Menser about some of the tools and technologies that we use at my company as he is trying to figure out what makes sense to incorporate into this year's curriculum. And so many different ways to stay engaged, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a weekly call or anything, but it's great to know that they're there when I need them and vice versa. And then alumni have also been really influential. So coming to Chicago, one of the first people that I met when coming out here was Jay Weinberg, and he hosted a dinner for myself and the other Bryant alum from my class who was coming out here. And so we met with him and another alum, Dustin Goldberg, and you know, they gave us basically what were the down low on being in Chicago and being a Bryant alum in Chicago, and really created this sort of connection between us and some of the other Bryant alumni from previous classes who we may not have met when we were on campus. And so, you know, we also now have this Bryant Chicago group that's pretty strong, and when all the things with lockdown have lifted a little bit more and we're able to get together, we will do that again like we used to in the past. But definitely lots of different ways to stay engaged with Bryant, even after you're done.
Excellent. Emily, would you say that that you were able to make use of your Bryant network as part of your move or settling into Minneapolis, or have you stayed in touch with any of your Bryant professors or other folks that you knew on campus?
Yeah, I think it's been a breath of fresh air to have gone to 3 scheduled through the Alumni Engagement Office Minneapolis Bryant Alumni Network events. Robin Ward comes out for each event, and she also, her sister lives out here, so I know it's a family reunion every time she comes out. And it's just so fun to get in with a group of people that know and can talk and have been to the same places and have done the same things as you, even if it's only, you know, 2 hours every 6 months. It's almost like for those 2 hours, you're lifted back to New England and have these deep roots that you grew up with these people, even though, you know, we're all out here in different stages of life, different stages of our career, but we share that common experience of having walked through the archway, having walked through the unistructure, having done all those things, gone to the MAC, seen a baseball game, just all those things that you can relate to with people that you've just met. So that alumni network out here has been so exciting to be part of. There's even too, I love to see when parents come to that group of parents who have students who are out at Bryant, because it's kind of like, well, now I am that child who's out here and my family's far away, but I can rest assured and tell them they're in a good place, they're learning, they will come back, they will always value, you know, all the things that, you know, the you were right mom, you were right dad moments that eventually they'll understand. And so that's been really exciting. From the professor's perspective, I keep in touch with Dr. Michael Gravier and Dr. Teresa McCarthy, especially through any job transitions. So at General Mills, I've had 4 different roles, all within our sourcing organization as part of supply chain. And it's just so fun to talk with them as each new role has come up, and whether it's about the role, about the change, about any, you know, life change. They're always just great people to bounce ideas off of. And I think, as Shruti said, know that they're there in your corner. I'd even say Professor David Greenan, he was my GFOB professor, first 8 a.m. class my freshman year. And he and I talk all the time, whether it's just via LinkedIn quick messages back and forth, but it's knowing that if I were to call him tomorrow, you know, he would answer. And I think that is just part of being part of the Bryant community that you get, whether you're a current student, future student, or an alum. And then I don't want to forget like all of the great friends and what network that is. So I have 3 of my best girlfriends that I made back in Bryant, and just this past weekend, safely with COVID, celebrated her bachelorette party. And then in 3 weeks from now, she'll be getting married, and we're all excited to have our Bryant alumni banner with us and take a picture with it, because we're just so excited that that's the, you know, we got to share living together, we got to be best friends and share all those experiences. And I'd say Bryant, your true friends that you met at Bryant, whether you move to another city, whether you stay in the same city and your best friends move away, if you make the effort to stay in contact with them, folks will travel to see you, you'll talk on the phone, you'll FaceTime. And in the world we're living, just reaching out and having those connections are so key. So if you maintain the right ones, you can do it and the right people will stick around.
Well said, well said. Alex, do you have something to share too about your Bryant network, whether it's other alumni or faculty?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the two prominent figures that stand out to me and that helped me kind of transition in my career would be you, Kathleen, and Donna Harris. So while I was at Bryant, I was part of the Student Alumni Association. So, Kathleen was actually our academic chair, worked very closely with all of the students on that organization where, we'd go to dinners with alumnus and, learn their perspective. And as a student, already starting to network with alumni was very valuable. And even post-graduation, I've stayed in touch very closely with Kathleen and Donna. I was the president of the Boston chapter of alumni for a short period of time before I moved out to Denver. So was able to get in touch with a lot of different alumni and actually help put together those alumni events in the Boston area at restaurants and, reach out to alumni, get them engaged, reach out to, students or newer alumni that have just graduated and really get everyone together. So in that kind of position, I was able to meet a lot of different people and expand my network a lot. And I think I leaned a lot more on the alumni network in my career than, maybe the professors I had while I was at Bryant. So part of my growth at a company called Acquia was Tim Bertrand, who was the chief sales officer, and he was a Bryant alumni as well. So knowing that I was an alumnus, he took me under his wing and, kind of helped grow me in the organization and mentored me and gave me all the information that I needed. So I can't say enough how important it is to really find a mentor in your career. Focus on, experience and professional growth, not the money. The money will come after. Focus on getting that experience and you will grow, and really focus on finding a mentor and finding good bosses, because those are the people that are going to help you accelerate and really be in your corner and really want you to succeed. So definitely lean on the alumni network, definitely lean on Robin, Kathleen, and Donna. So I always reach out to them if, I need a CPA or a tax accountant or something for my business. I'm like, hey, do we have anybody in the area? And I always go to Bryant alumni first, see if they will work with me, and then kind of, keep it in a little community like that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Alex. And we're so pleased that you were such a connected student and you stayed connected after graduating and got a good Denver network. I know you were away when we got together with alumni out in Denver in February, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to connecting with you all there as soon as we're allowed to connect in person, if that ever happens. But so Hillary, can you tell us a little bit about your feelings about making use of the Bryant network, either with alums or faculty or whatever Bryant experience you want to share?
Yeah, so my first job out of college, I never would have gotten that job without everyone who worked in the Center for Student Involvement, which might be called something different now, but it was the Center for Student Involvement, Fisher Student Center, maybe it's called that now, I'm not sure. But the whole staff there, which I don't think any of them are still there, but there's Karen, Darlene, Megan, Rich, John, Connie, all of them. I spent pretty much all day, every day up on the third floor of the Student Center. So they were all very, very involved in me getting my first career. And for the few years after, I would see them at these conferences that I would travel to, and they helped expand my network and grow the business that I was basically starting from scratch. So I definitely owe a lot to them and the whole staff there at the Center for Student Involvement. Another couple of people who were really important to me, David Lynch with Sodexo. aside from feeding me so many times on campus, he's also been just a great friend through the years. We still keep in touch. He's just an incredible person. And Barbara Gregory from the Career Center. We talk regularly. She's always Facebooking me and always commenting on everything I'm doing, and I just love her. She was also our advisor for the figure skating team, so we were really close with her. Bryant used to have a figure skating team.
I remember, yeah.
That was my baby, and RIP. That was my baby at Bryant, and she helped us through that whole process, and then she kept up with all of us after and would come to see us at figure skating competitions after that, and was a huge supporter. So those are some of the important faculty or staff for me. And then the alumni, of course, my roommates, I'm very close to them still. One of them was supposed to be married 2 months ago, but unfortunately it's postponed. So hopefully we'll all get to see each other again soon. I think all 5 of us are living in 5 different states, so we don't get to see each other too often, but her wedding's been postponed to next year, so hopefully we'll see each other then. But we still remain very close, and a lot of my friends at Bryant, even though we all live all over the place now, take the time to talk to each other, and we give each other career advice. And now some of them are having babies, which is crazy to think about. People in college having babies, but it happens.
Yeah, the clock keeps ticking for all of us, Hillary. You know, and I'm on the highest end of that in this group gathered this evening. So the clock is ticking for all of us.
I know, these guys saying they graduated in 2018. I'm like, oh boy, okay. I'm older than I thought. I'm 2011 like Alex. So.
Oh, yeah. That's so old, yeah. Anyway, so before we start to bring the evening to a close, were there any other kind of words of advice, topics I didn't ask in a specific question that you might want to share about your experience, advice for the kind of what do I do next young alum out there? Any final comments you might want to share?
I think for me, I was always in a rush at the beginning of my career. You know, what's next? How do I get to the next step? You know, how do I get here? How do I get there? And I'm very goal oriented, so I always wanted to accelerate my goals. So I think what I've realized now is don't rush. You know, master the role that you're in and lean on your mentors and your bosses, and they'll take care of you, and you'll naturally grow. And just chase experience and professional growth. Don't chase the money. The moment you start chasing money, the moment you start getting into positions where you don't have good leaders, you don't have good bosses, you don't have good mentors, and you'll burn out very quickly. So you look for the opportunity to progress yourself, and the money will come after.
I would just add, I think a lot of students, when they're trying to find a role or first job in their field for what they studied, if they can't get that, or you don't know if you want a job that's in what you studied, don't get hooked to that. I think no matter what experience you take, you're going to learn something from it. So really focus on whatever role you're in, what skills and experiences are you gaining that you can take to the next role or the next job or anything you're working in. Because to what Alex said around being in the moment and taking it in, that's where you learn, that's where you grow. And as soon as you start to get comfortable, maybe that's when you're ready to start trying new things, right? Make sure you're pushing yourself, make sure you're finding, being okay with being uncomfortable. And I heard a quote one time that was, is it really a step back if it's a step in the right direction? And I really liked that, because if you're thinking of taking a job outside of what you studied, or all of a sudden you end up in a role and it is what you studied, but 3 years from now you're saying, I want to do something completely different, and you know that from all the experiences you've had, let that be okay. There isn't a one path or right way to do anything. As you carved your path at Bryant and as you carve your career and personal life, it's going to be yours and yours to own. So own it, make those decisions, and let those decisions take you where you want them to, and not where others tell you that you think they should be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's good advice for me to listen to as well. I mean, for all of us, even as we're further in our career, we think about some of the other aspects of our lives and the other kind of service and social aspects of our complete selves, right? So no, I appreciate that perspective.
I think Alex and Emily both made a really good call out in this idea of, figuring out when you are uncomfortable and kind of leaning into that. So when the other 5 people that live in your townhouse all move to Boston and you're looking at roles that are someplace else, don't be afraid of that, because you really have the opportunity to carve out a piece of something that's entirely your own when you do something that's a little bit untraditional. And there are so many opportunities that await you in all of these wonderful cities, whether that's in the Midwest or on the West Coast or maybe even in another country. It's going to be challenging, but it's going to be so rewarding at the same time.
I have to chime in too. Everyone.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I agree with everyone else. Also, the group projects, we know how many group projects there are at Bryant. They're there for a reason. And as frustrating as they are, you're going to have to work with all kinds of different people. And it really does help to learn how to work with all those different people and smiling your way through it. And you never know. I've worked with some really wild artists who have crazy viewpoints on things they want to do. But sometimes you just have to smile and take in what they have to say, and then come up with a plan and get back to them. And you build your network. You learn so much from other people. Whether it was a good experience or a bad experience, you learn from it. So those group projects, they do pay off, I promise. And they don't go away. You'll be doing group projects forever.
Right. I think everyone here can agree with that, right? Wonderful. All right, well, I can't thank you all enough for taking time out this evening to chat with us, share your experiences. It's really a valuable gift you're giving to our community, and I can't wait to share it with our young grads. So thanks again. Have a great night. I can't wait to see you all in person. I can't wait to give you all hugs when that's allowed, and go Bulldogs.